Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be doing something that's very simple but time consuming, but the end result is pretty awesome. We are going to be installing One Up Lighting's L-wire kit. It's not a true L-wire, it's basically just a large fiber optic cable that allows light to pass through it. You get one long roll of the fiber optic cable, if that's what you want to call it, and then it has this little tab on the inside of it, and that is so you can tuck it into something like this, and then it holds it in place. This feeds into the light source on the back. This is the light source. That cable will fit into here, and then it has a set screw to tighten down onto it so it doesn't pull out. It has 4 of these. Each one has a single LED in it, which is RGB. And then that all goes into this control module, which has a QR code on it, so you can download the app to control everything. And then that goes to a set of alligator clips that I currently have hooked up to the battery, but those I'll be cutting off and wiring directly into this switch here, which turns on all of the interior lights as well as the Starlight headliner. That way all of the lights turn on at once, and we can turn each one off individually through the app or through a controller that they came with. Alright, so first thing that you're going to want to do is remove your door panel.
5 p.m.
And in order to do that, you're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver and then either a pry tool, or you can use just a flathead like this. Now to get these off, there's a little slot in the bottom here, and you can just pry out from there, and then the door handle covers pop right off. And then inside here you have a little tab, and you flip that open, that'll expose a Phillips head screw. Once you have all those screws removed, then go ahead, move this little push clip there, and then all you have to do is reach on the front side of the door panel here. You'll be able to get your fingers in a little bit, and then just do a quick jerk, and it'll pop all the clips out from it, so then the door panel will be free. Pull out on the door handle here, and then just lift up, and that will free it from the door. Now what you're going to want to do is remove that plug, and you can see the little tab on the very top in the center there. Press that in and the plug will come out. Now what you want to do is remove the cables for the door lock and the door handle itself. These just pop out. That one actually came out really easy. These, you just put it at the proper angle, lift up, and this ball will come loose. And now door panel is free. So now that you have your door panel out, what you're going to want to do if you're going to be putting these in the same place is remove all these screws, or at least loosen them up enough so this panel is able to be moved out of the way. Otherwise it's a little bit tight to get everything to fit properly. This whole cover here becomes loose, and if you take all the screws out, this can just pop out. We're going to do the same thing with the screws holding your armrest on there. And those are all these ones lined up down here. And then there's also some clips on the top. You just push those in, and then the whole thing will pop right off. You don't have to remove it completely, but it does make it a little bit easier. Since all the gaps are very tight, you're going to need to make a small hole to feed the light through. Okay, so the first one that we're going to put in is going to be on the armrest portion, and we're going to feed it through this back corner here. So what we're going to need to do on this is drill a small hole right in the corner here for it to fit through. Otherwise we'd have to feed it through and it'll get kinked because the opening is a little bit further back here. So we're going to drill a hole right here, and you'll never see that once this clicks down over it. And now you're going to want to measure out how much of this you're going to need. So figure we're going to have about this much sticking out of the back side of it, You can have less, you can have more, it doesn't really matter. We'll feed that kind of through here, get a general idea. And then on this side of it, we're gonna leave a little bit extra too, because we don't want to cut it off hard right here, because then something can catch on it and pull it out. We're gonna leave a little bit so we can tuck it into this gap right there to hold it into place. What you're gonna want to do to the end that goes through the door is cut off this tab a few inches into it, just so you can feed that through. Now we'll get this end that we cut off and put that into that hole that we drilled. And now we can pull this and try to get this to go back down and around. Not going to quite snap it back into place just yet. We're going to go ahead and start running this line through. And it's pretty much as simple as that. On the back end here, as you can see, it kind of wants to just do its own thing. So what we need to do is trim a little bit of that tab off on this so it can actually conform around the shape a little bit better. You see it's tucked in. That's where that hole was drilled and fed through. Right there. And that's what the light will actually connect to. And then we'll feed that all the way around. And this last little bit here, we will tuck it into the gap that's underneath, and that will hold that in place. Now here is your speaker cover, and that was just held on by 7 screws on the back side, and that sits right here like this. You don't have to remove this completely, but it does make it a little bit easier when you want to drill your hole to get the light to fit through. And for this one, I'm going to be feeding it through this opening right here that's already there. But with this on here, it sits flush up against that, so it's going to be hard to get it to bend and get this to sit flush again. So what I did on the other side was I just took and I just notched out a tiny little bit on this top corner here, so it sits around this when that's fed through there. And there is the hole that I made to get to fit around it. And like you did with the other one, trim off the tab a couple inches. On this one, you are going to want to trim some of this off. Around the corners to get it to really conform. Then with this back side here, we're just going to cut this at an angle, because it tapers on the inside here once you have this all in. So now that that's ready to go, and go ahead and put back the screws for this, holding this in place. Now we're on to the fun part, feeding the wires through into the door. So what I did is you just pull up on this portion here and pop this panel off. And that'll come off, no problem. And then you're gonna want to remove this little kick panel here, and that is going to have a push clip in the back there holding it in place, and then you will pull it towards you to get it out. Now that you have that removed, there's going to be an opening here that feeds wires into the door. Instead of trying to feed them all through this and into the door and everything else like that, I've done this before, it's a pain. So what I'm doing is I'm actually just running them on the outside of this, and then I will electrical tape all the way up just so everything is sealed up. Looks OEM, because with vertical doors, this is all visible. What I'm doing here is just prying this rubber up and away from this little white plastic clip, And these have little tabs on the inside here. And you just push those in, and then you'll be able to actually remove this whole thing. And that'll give you free open space to feed your wires through. So what I did here is pulled this rubber gasket around that, popped this free, cut a little hole in it, fed the wires through, and then those go straight through to the back side, and you can see light through there. And then those just fed into the car, and then just pull them through a little bit. Now you can go ahead and pull this gasket around that plastic again, and that's why you have to pop this off, because if this is tight up against here, you'll never get this to fit around it again. So get that fitted, and then it'll just click into place. And now on the door itself, you have this gasket here, and I just took my knife, made an opening large enough to feed the lights through, and then just tucked both those in, reached up through the opening there, and pulled them through. And now with the 4 lights, there's going to be 2 longer ones and 2 shorter ones. You're going to want to use one of each on each side. Alright, now before you start putting everything back together, you're going to want to get your lights hooked up here. So the short one, stick onto the first one sticking out, and you'll just tighten up that set screw around there. And then grab your longer one and hook that up to the one for the armrest. Now, a good rule of thumb before you go much further than this is just turn them on, make sure everything is working the way they should before you start hooking everything back up. But these are working, so now you can hook your cables back up for your door. The green one goes on the bottom, and then the silver one goes on the top. Then you can hook up your window switches again. And remember, you put the top of the door card on the door first. And you can make sure everything is lined up. And then just give her a good smack. And now she's on there tight. Now we'll go ahead, we'll throw the screws back in the door, so that's all done. And then we can move on to wiring it up. Alright, so I'm not going to really go over any of the wiring or anything else like that. That's totally up to you how you want to do that. If you want to wire it to a switch, if you want to wire it to the door lights or anything else like that. Since I already have these switches here, I wired it up to the one for the interior lights. So you turn that on, all the interior lights come on, as well as the lights in the doors. Flip that off, they go off. And then I just ran all the wires and everything, and now I just need to put everything back together, and then it'll be all good to go. But yeah, pretty simple, just very time consuming. It's mainly just running all the wires, figuring out how you're going to wire up your switch and all that stuff that's going to take the longest. But the end result is pretty sweet. I decided to do it around the doors. Since the doors are kind of a showpiece of the car, that adds a little more flair. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them down below. We'll make sure to get back to you. We'll also have our discount code in the description for oneuplighting.com for any of their products, so make sure to go check them out. And we'll have a link to this product specifically in there so you can find it easy enough if you want to go with them. But that's it for this video, guys. We'll see you in the next one.